Morning everyone, and welcome to this week's garden update, which I would consider a bit of a before video because I'm showing you around the raised garden bed area where I have freshly planted some little seedlings, some of which are a bit hard to spot. They're still quite tiny and not a whole load to look at in some places. However, the ideas are still there, and I do want to make sure that we document them at this stage and see them develop over the next few months. I want to start off with a couple of annual flowers which we are very fortunate to be able to grow here during our winter. I'm talking about violas and pansies. This time of year they start to become available for purchase in garden centres, and I'm a sucker for them. It would be unusual if I didn't leave with one in my hand. The temptation is real. The price ranges from around $2 or $3 for a small pot, which I think is good value for money when you're getting a plant that will flower for months on end, either potted into a larger container or in ground. One of my favourites to grow is Johnny Jump violas, but I haven't started to sow any seeds yet. So if I spot a punnet on my next trip to the garden centre, I'll pick that up then. Viola flowers are actually smaller than pansies. However, I still manage to get them mixed up sometimes. But, you know, I'm an avid home gardener, not an expert, so I learn as I grow. I've put a lot of plants in the ground since last week, mostly just seedlings, which I'm going to go through now. Most of these baby plants went in here where all the raised garden beds are. However, a few of them did go down the back into the fan garden. I've got 2 rows of bok choy and they're looking pretty healthy so far. I haven't noticed much damage from slugs and snails. I mean, there's the odd bit here and there, but I can't quite tell whether that was from those little pests. However, I have noticed there's been a lot of birds in here and big chunks of foliage cut off the top, mostly on my brassicas, cauliflowers and broccoli, and I think that's because the cabbage white butterflies have laid their eggs, the caterpillars had hatched, and the birds have discovered them, eating them as tasty treats. But unfortunately, the collateral damage are the tops of the foliage. Well, that's my theory anyway. I'm not 100% sure, but it's my best guess. So here, this is some parsley that's self-seeded. In this bed, I have left the fountain grass in its place. Still not quite sure whether I should dig this up and transfer it elsewhere in the garden or just leave it be. I think it looks quite nice there. I really love the darker foliage as contrast to what will be growing underneath. And here at the back I have some snow peas, so I just popped a couple in there and I put about 5 plants along this section. The next job to do with these is to give them a bit of a climbing frame, because they can grow up to 1.5 to 2 meters in height. And what they do is they send out these little tendrils. You can see one just there, which is my sign to get going on this job. And they will wrap themselves around the frame, giving the plant support, enabling it to grow upwards and catch lots of sunlight. When it comes to peas, it's recommended that you direct sow them because it gives you healthier and more vigorous plants. However, with these guys here, I actually started them off in this tray. And I find as long as you're careful with the delicate roots as you remove them from their little cells, they usually are quite fine and take off very quickly in the ground. Now, there are a couple of reasons why I do start them off in trays, and that is because the little seeds in there are absolutely irresistible to certain creatures in the garden like mice, birds and snails. These seeds are buried deep enough in the ground, but it's like these little pests. Well, I don't really like calling them pests, but I guess for this case, let's just say we'll call them that. So the birds and the mice have little homing devices. They know exactly where these are. They fish them out and then it keeps them happy, but me not so much. And the snails love these fresh green shoots just as they pop out of the soil. They're really tasty and irresistible to them. I find if I group them all together in a tray like this, it's much easier to manage. I'm able to keep an eye on them a lot better rather than these all being spread out in different locations around the garden. Some years I'm better organised than others, where I'm able to direct sow the seeds because the garden beds are ready for planting, and I'm also prepared to re-sow any of them that get eaten and give that extra time keeping an eye out for garden pests. This year, where I feel like I'm a little bit tight for time, I'm just going to do this method instead. Okay, I'm going to try and whiz through the rest of the plants. So here I have some purple mizuna. There are actually a few little tiny seedlings in this patch. And then over here I have a couple of calendulas. I believe they are called Pacific Mix, so there'll be a mixture. Hopefully I'll get a yellow and an orange one there, add a nice bit of colour at the front of the bed. Across from that bed over here I have a couple of larger plants which I purchased. Remember I said I was going to the garden centre? Well, I got these. They're called Kalettes, which is a newer type plant, and you can see there from the picture they look a little bit like miniature cabbage, almost the size of Brussels sprouts. So I am looking forward to hopefully having success with these two. I did try and grow them last year or the year before from seed, but they didn't do very well for me, so I'm hoping now I'll have better luck this time. And you see all those holes in the leaves? That's a good telltale sign that you may have caterpillars in here. So I have to start coming in here now every day and checking the back of all the Brassica foliage, making sure that there aren't any cabbage white butterfly eggs. Here's a red cabbage and a couple of cauliflower plants. Look at the state of this one. Oh, that's got it. Oh my goodness, I really need to keep a better eye on these. I've waited till today to do this. I probably could have done it a couple of days ago, but we are going to do the grand reveal of carrot seedlings. So remember I put this on, keeping it nice and damp, which it isn't at the moment, this old sheet, to try and help with good germination of the carrots that I sowed underneath in this bed. Well, let's take a look. Ready? 1, 2, 3. So here we go. Look at this. It's looking good, isn't it? I don't know if you can see, but they're kind of semi in rows. So I was hoping that would help to distinguish between the carrot seedlings and any weeds that might pop up. But like, look at these here. I can pull them out. I think last year I had some turnips, that's the word, it was turnips. And then during the summertime I had tomato plants in here. Now I'm going to wait until these seedlings get a little bit larger. You can see that they're quite close together, and they will eventually need thinning out. I have made the mistake before to thin them out at this stage, and then what happens is they get attacked by the snails and I'm left with absolutely nothing. So I've learned my lesson from that. I'm going to leave these all in here until they get larger, and then I'll thin them out, and I'll go through that process with you when it comes around. For these next two beds, this one has all broccoli seedlings, and then over here there are some different types of lettuce. You can see a mix here, and then at the back there they are all leeks. In this bed I'm thinking I'll put a row of calendulas along there. Behind them will be some rainbow chard, and at the back here will be some kohlrabi. I cannot remember if I showed you this or not, so sorry if I'm repeating myself, but in this bed I have put in lots of the ranunculus. I transplanted a dill which I found growing in a pot that I wanted to clear out, and then over here I have some pin cushions, the tall mix. I sowed them back in spring, maybe summertime. I never ended up planting them out in the garden. They were okay in the pots, and now I finally put them in the ground. So I'm hoping now, I always get a bit nervous with the mixed seed packets, because oftentimes, even though I've got what, like 4 plants here, 4 plants, I don't know whether it's just my bad luck sometimes or whether some seeds are more dominant, but I find that a lot of these will probably be the same colour. I'm hoping they're not. I'm hoping it's a mix. This is one of the dahlias that I cut back. I need to chop it off a bit more. And then along here, I put in some more pea plants. So that's everything I planted in that area since I've seen you last week. I'm hoping by next Friday I will have 2 more beds cleared out, and they are the ones where I have some chilies and capsicums, which I'm actually going to put into pots and overwinter for next springtime. If I manage to get around to that, I'll show you how I do that next week. And then with those 2 beds, I'm thinking in one I'll put some beetroot and the other one I might put some radishes. That's about all I can manage to squeeze in for this week. Thank you so much for watching till the end. Stay safe and I'll see you again next Friday.